Welcome to TVLinux. This is our 65th show, and I'm here with Jesse Black. Hey, Jesse, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Shaun. How are you?
Pretty good. So what do you think about the show tonight?
I'm really looking forward to it. We've got some educational segments coming up.
Today we're going to talk about databases. Now, databases are both good and bad. They can be used to keep track of your finances, keep track of the
Anything you want.
Right. But they can also be used for bad things like keeping track of huge personal databases across the net.
Or people keeping track of you who you don't want to have them do.
Exactly. So the first thing we will start out with is the nerd news. Well, I saw a really cool computer today. It's a laptop. The screen's about this big. It's an ultra portable. It weighs about 2.2 pounds.
That's light.
That is really light. And it runs Linux.
Of course.
And it sells for $260.
That's pretty affordable.
I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. On the screen, you can see it. And it's an 800 by 480 screen. There's 2 gig of flash storage, so there's no hard drive. So it's basically for surfing the web and, just doing some real simple things.
Okay.
Anywhere you want.
A flash drive is a good idea. It's sturdier than the actual rotating hard drives that are in most laptops today.
So the next thing is we're talking about getting Linux into the standard distributions. And guess what? Dell is doing it right now. And what this thing is about is now you have a choice of 3 operating systems. You can either go with Mac, Linux, or some other third one that people have been using. And there's a lot of, later in the show, I'm going to be talking about how bad Vista's doing and how Microsoft is saying, okay, we're going to keep selling XP because none of the businesses are buying Vista anymore. So here's the next one. As you know, I'm very interested in China. And the article is called China, Emerging FOSS Dragon, with a lot to gain from and share with the world. What this is about a open source in China and how popular it's becoming and how well it's doing and the support that everyone in China is starting to give to it. Later in the year, I'm planning on going to China to give talks about Linux for TVLinux.
Great.
And here's another picture of that tiny laptop. And here's a kid's doing it, using it. And here's something else you can use at the beach. And I'm sure that people are watching the laptop here.
Very nice shot of the ocean there in the
yes.
background.
Yeah. And this is what I think is interesting. There is now a helmet that people can wear that they can be in touch with God.
How convenient.
So, you now can say, hey, I want to see God. You go to a store, you pay your money, you put this helmet on and talk to God.
Cool.
Talk about advancements in religion.
Yeah, that saves you a lot of time on achieving enlightenment and things like that.
Right. Instant enlightenment. Pay your money and go. Here's another interesting thing. is Neurotic Software has winning personality. Were experiments done in AI for gaming, and they found out that the most successful AI is the Neurotic Software. You know, the ones with neuroses and strange quirks are the ones that do the best in gaming software intelligence.
Huh.
So what does that tell you about people? And this is another thing that we're going to talk about today. Jesse's going to talk about the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And we're basically going to talk about what to look for in keeping your browser safe. And that's going to be the Mozilla Minute. And this is fitting in with that. And they found out that only 27% use software designed to stop phishing. 64% surveyed report have their firewalls turned on. And 87% say they use antivirus software, but they found that it's only 50% that really work.
Well, it came as a 60-day demo on the system, and people sometimes forget to pay the money to renew those subscriptions. So.
And they think they've got antivirus software there because it was there. And that's one thing about Linux is you don't have to pay to have virus-free computing. You know, I've been using Linux now for 15 years. I haven't used Windows for about 10. And I think I used virus software once about 10 or 11 years ago. But that's it. So I haven't used, I've been computing safely ever since. Now, we've always talked about electronic voting and, you know, creating an open source version of voting. Well, again, Diebold, electronic voting machines, said throughout the whole vote, because there was no auditing done within the software. So, yeah, here's the answers. Oh, you want to see how we got them? We can't show them to you.
So it's basically a matter of them telling us who won the election, and we have no idea how that was determined?
Right, right. So this is Diebold again. So they threw out the whole election, and it was on the operation of medical marijuana dispensaries. So it will be going back on the ballot next year.
From in California's Alameda County.
Right. So I hope more judges do that. I wish someone did that in the 2000 election.
Well, Shaun, we make some jokes about that, but really that is the critical issue. If you can't trust the election system, you can't trust the results, and so people feel, why should I participate? Or they are told the results and they say, I don't believe that.
Right.
It just kind of cuts
to the core of democracy.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to understand how the election system works and to have confidence that it's correctly implemented. And that's why it needs to be an open source project, so we can see what is happening.
So anyone in the U.S. can verify personally, that the software that they are using has been validated.
Mm-hmm. And is correct, and is producing the results.
And producing the results that are required.
Right.
So it's a big issue, and people really need to work on that. And here's another one. In the new ATT Terms of Service, now little background, AT&T was the one that supported the NSA and for the illegal wiretaps. So what they're doing is they're saying that AT&T has the right to suspend your account and all services for conduct that AT&T believe tends to damage the name or reputation of AT&T, of its parents, affiliates, and subsidiaries. So if they don't like what you're saying, they'll cancel your free speech. I mean, to me, this is the epitome of corporate abuse.
And people are agreeing to these things without even reading it, right?
Oh, I'm sure of it. And here's the last time I talked about the Apple iPhone being bricked if you had it cracked. Well,
is that a technical term, to be bricked?
To be bricked, because you can't do anything with it, so now you have a $600 brick in your hands because you can't restore it.
So people have figured out how to unlock the iPhone so that they could use it on a different service.
Right.
And then Apple is
sending up updates that totally destroys their
totally disables your phone.
Your phone forever. And of course, there's been lawsuits against Apple about that.
Sounds pretty severe.
It is. It is. You know, again, to me, that's corporate abuse. You know, it all depends on what you do. Okay, well, that's all for the nerd news. Now let's go to the Mozilla Minute.
For our Mozilla Minute, we'll be talking about email safety. And I'm going to demonstrate this in my favorite web browser, which is Firefox. But it will work the same way in most email programs. I know for sure it works in Mozilla Thunderbird this way. So I've just brought up Gmail as a sample email program. And I'm going to click on one of these messages from, let's see, we'll try Bank of America here. And we'll see what Bank of America wants to say to me. It's a update my account information. Okay, so I'm going to scroll on over here and see where the link is to update my account information. Oh, it doesn't even showing here. Oh, here's a sign in link over here. I'm going to put my cursor over this sign in link. They want me to sign in and update my information. So I'm going to put my cursor here over where it says sign in. Now look at the bottom of the screen, just between the blue bar and the logo here. See this gray bar, blue bar? Now watch the gray bar as I put my cursor over there. It is showing me where that link actually points. And this is supposed to be Bank of America, but for some reason the link is pointing at something called quintdappenhere.com something. I don't have any idea what that is, but it sure doesn't look like
Bank of America.
Right.
That's right.
So the lesson we draw here from is not only do you not respond to those emails that you get to update your eBay account information before it's suspended, or to update your account information on the web. Don't respond to those emails. And for sure you can see if you just hover your pointer over the link, it often points off into other places that definitely are not the place that that you should be logging into.
And another thing is, if any place says, please update your account, my general policy is, I'm not going to.
Right.
You know, if they don't have I'll call them, or I will go to their website myself, and go through a known path to get to them rather than using the email, the easy way.
Right.
You know, easy way means trouble a lot of times. If it's too easy to believe, it probably is.
Right. In fact, the general advice is if you're asked to click here for something, just to go to as you just said, go to the site yourself and find the information rather than clicking, because some of these URLs that show up down there are very long and hard to understand. So rather than just say, I'll just go for it, just show some restraint there and avoid that. So the message is hover over the pointer, have a little laugh at the place that they want you to go log in at, and then delete the message.
So that was our security tip for the week. Well, thank you, Jesse. Now let's look at some Showtimes. And the Showtimes are, We are on every second, fourth, and fifth Tuesday live on channel 711. So remember 711 on Tuesday, 7 p.m. on channel 11. Monday, repeat on channel 23 at 10 p.m. So you can get home from work and watch us, help you get to sleep. And Thursday at channel 23 at 11 a.m. And those are for the night workers, the graveyard shift, to help them get to sleep. And then channel 11, Saturday at 10 a.m.
For the kids.
For the kids. Okay, now we will go with Jesse on telling us, Jesse, what exactly did you find out what a database is?
Well, Shaun, you told me that tonight's show would be on databases, so I figured I better go brush up on what a database is so that I can sound intelligent. So I did a little bit of research on databases, and of course I do all my research on the web. So I looked up database. I said define database, and the Princeton WordNet said that a database is an organized body of related information. Okay, that sounds good. Kind of like a phone book is a database, I guess.
It is.
Right.
In fact, a phone book is a database.
Another good source of definitions is Wikipedia. A database is a collection of information stored in a computer in a systematic way, such that a computer program can consult it to answer questions. The software used to manage and query a database is known as a database management system, or DBMS. So that means My Documents is not a database because it's not an organized system. The term database refers to a collection of related records, and the software should be referred to as the Database Management System, or DBMS. When the context is unambiguous, however, many database administrators and programmers use the term database to cover either meaning. So, common use. So, a database refers to the data. Most strictly, database management system is how you get the data in and out. So a database can be organized in a number of ways. The two most interesting ones these days are flat files and relational databases. Now, flat files are
Is a phone book.
A phone book.
A
So
phone
that's
book.
a stack of flat files, right?
A stack of flat
Right,
files.
it's organized in columns.
And you could read it.
Each file.
There's a record which has the name and the phone number and maybe the address.
That's right. Exactly. Now there's other forms, but those are the ones that we'll talk about today. Another example of a flat file is if you can imagine an Excel spreadsheet that you've typed in columns of information in, like names and numbers or something like that. So that could be considered a flat file. If you save it, it can be considered a flat file. Now Excel actually has way more manipulations that you can do on the data. So Excel is more than just a flat file, but that's a way that you can picture it. And a relational database can be thought of as a collection of interrelated simple flat files, although that's really an oversimplification, but just for the basis of introduction.
Yeah.
These simple relationships are called tables, and tables are kept simple, usually only a few columns of data each, so to avoid duplication and to keep the tables nice and simple, so you can work with many tables in memory at once. And then they can perform relationships between the tables to look up different things of interest. Now an example might be an employee database, and the table might be have your employee ID as the key to look it up with. The employee name might have the address. That'd be one table. Another table might be employee ID and pay grade and current pay or something like that, and it'd be a history of those for you.
Or boss. There's a employee boss relationship.
Right.
And so there's many different, and that's called a relational database, where there's a relationship between one table, which is the employee ID, and another table, the boss ID.
Right. And so a typical operation that you might want to perform is update the address, which you can do in one table without updating the boss or the pay scale. Or you might get a raise, update the pay scale without changing the boss or the place where you live. So that's why they're kept in different tables.
And also for security. You know, if you want some people to be able to find out where you live, but you don't want or find out your phone number, but they don't want you to find out how much you make.
Right.
So they're in two different tables so that you can find out the phone number of this person, but you can't find out how much they make.
Because you might not have they might not have access to your pay the pay table. Right. So relational databases are often queried using a standard language called structured query language, abbreviated SQL, but often pronounced SQL because it's just easier to say than SQL. And a database management system, or DBMS, is the software used to retrieve and store information in the database. So some DBMSs that you might have heard of include FileMaker, DBase, Microsoft Access, Microsoft SQL Server, or MySQL.
And I'm going to be showing MySQL and Postgres tonight.
Great. Okay. The OpenOffice Office Suite also comes with a database called OpenOffice Base, which we may show in a different
and that's more like Access,
right,
where you're able to create tables and incorporate forms and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it can replace Access in a better way.
Right. A great topic for a future show. Now, in the Linux world, there's three interesting database management systems, and they are MySQL, PostgreSQL, and SQLite. MySQL and PostgreSQL are full-fledged database management systems that can operate in client-server mode, and they're intended for really commercial-scale, heavy-duty databases. And SQLite, which is spelled SQLite, is a small database management system that can be linked into or incorporated directly into a program. So it's not really intended to be a super
multi-user.
large. Yeah, right.
Right.
Most database systems are like MySQL and PostgreSQL are multi-user so that many users can be querying the same database and updating. So we've talked about databases and database management systems, and we've mentioned one set of code, namely the library SQLite, that programmers can include in their programs to store and retrieve data from the databases. So how can you get started with the database? There are two GUI programs you can use just to tinker with databases. One is called SQLite Database Browser, and another one is called SQL Pro. And there's also a command line utility called SQLite 3. All these are ways to look at and manipulate databases.
And I'm going to be showing some that relate to MySQL and Postgres, visual database management administration tools.
Good, good. Because sometimes it's hard to visualize a database, so it helps to have a graphical tool to do that with. So let's go to SQLite Database Browser. It's a freeware, public domain, open source visual tool used to create, design, and edit database files compatible with SQLite. It's meant for users and developers to be able to look at the data and fix things just in case there's something wrong in the data without the need to learn complicated SQL commands. And I got that definition almost verbatim from the SQLite website. The software is available for Windows, Mac OS X, and Linux, and you can download it from SourceForge. And it requires the Qt library, which is available free for Linux, but it's not free for Microsoft operating systems. But the SQLite database browser is freely available. So let's try something in SQLite. Remember, it's an application library that you can link in case your program needs a database. You can download it from SourceForge, you unzip it, you untar it, and you run it. And that's what I've done in order to save time. So I've already put it on my system. So let's create a little spreadsheet. Let's switch on to number 1 here. And I'm going to just import this little spreadsheet that I have. Recent documents, population. Okay, here's my spreadsheet. I have 4 columns, a key unique number, a city, a state, and the population of that city. And what we do is we save this into a comma-separated value file. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. File, save as. And I'm going to call it, I already see the file is already there, but I'll do it anyway. It's called population.xls. And I'm going to select comma separated value file. So I'm going to scroll down here to CSV, comma separated value. And this can be done in other spreadsheets. Almost all of them support this. So I'm going to say OK, and do I want to overwrite that one? Yes. OK. And it's warning me that some of the formatting will not, some of the features of a spreadsheet will not fit in a CSV file, and that's correct. Okay, so I've saved that now into the comma separated value file. So I'm going to go start up a terminal program, and I happen to be in the folder, the directory here, where I have the SQLite browser. So I'm going to start that up. So I'm going to start typing SQL. Tab. Oh, that's too long for me to type. I'm just going to hit the tab key, and it's, oh, I have to tell it where to find it. // which is the current folder, SQLite. Oh, okay, there we go. Tab key sure is handy.
Oh.
I'm going to start that up. And we'll look and see. Here is the SQLite database browser. So I'm going to create a new database. So I'm going to click on New Database. And I'm going to call this one, this database test, I guess. And it'll store it in the file called test. So I'm going to save it there. And it wants a table name. And I'm going to choose the table name POP, P-O-P. And I could add fields here, but I'm not going to because I'm going to import my fields later. So I'm going to create that file, create the table, oh, cancel. Okay, now I'm going to try to import that. Import a table from a comma separated value file, and I got to go find where I put that. Let's see, that would be in there someplace. I think it's in documents. Let me go see. Population.csv. There it is. I bring it in. It's asking me for the table name, and I think I'm going to call my table POP. So I'll create, oh, and look, my table has field names in the first line, so I'll choose that, extract field names from the first line, and I'm going to create it. So it imported it. Here's the structure of my database. There's a table called POP, and it has 4 fields in it. And if I go over to the Browse Data tab, there it is showing me table in tabular form, my data. Has a unique number, it has a city name, has a state, and a population. Hot pups.
Yeah.
That's what a database looks like. And it's a very simple one. So let's do a database query on that. So I'm going to click on the Execute SQL tab, and I'm going to type in a database query. Now here's one that I found on the web, and I just modified it. I'm going to select from select all records star from the table called POP, and I'm going to order the records by population. Now remember, population was one of my field names. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to click the Execute Query button. It says no error, and I'm looking at my data here in the bottom of the window. And sure enough, it's ordered by, my population doesn't look to be ordered at all. What gives here? Oh, look, it's ordered, Shaun, look, it's ordered alphabetically. All the ones, the ones are first, the 2s, 4s, 5s. Something's wrong here. It doesn't know that that's a numeric field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the edit thing, edit. I'm going to modify my table, and the table that I want to modify is called POP. Yep, right, and I'm going to edit that table, and I'm going to go to this population field. I'm going to edit that field, and the field type needs to be numeric. Okay, so I'm going to apply those changes. Now the population field is numeric. And now I'm going to say execute that query again. So I'm just going to click this execute button again. And now all the populations are in numerical order. Albany, Vermont, 167 people, all the way through Portland, Oregon, with over 500,000 people. So we've imported a flat file into our SQL database managed by SQLite. We've done a query on it, and we've got it to sort all the records by a population.
Oh, excellent, excellent. That's a wonderful presentation. As you can see, that was a very simple presentation, but it showed you the power of databasing. We're now going to show, at OSCON, I interviewed Jonathan Chair from SolidWorks, and we're going to show that interview now. And as you can see, it is on my computer, and I'm going to be playing it on my computer. Shaun Savage with TVLinux at OSCON 27, and I'm here with Jonathan Chair of SolidEV. Hi, Jonathan. How you doing?
Hi, Shaun.
So, tell me exactly what SolidEV is.
Sure. So, SolidEV is a storage engine for MySQL Server.
You're talking about the MySQL, that's the open source database that everyone uses, right?
Yeah, that's right. So our company is Solid Information Technology, and we make a storage engine plugin for the MySQL Server.
Now, what do you mean by a storage engine plugin?
So MySQL is designed a little bit differently from some of the other databases out there, like Postgres or Oracle. Most databases are just a database, and there isn't any way to break them up into smaller pieces. But the way that MySQL works is there's an upper layer, and the upper layer handles things such as the connections and parsing.
The optimization, and basically that is the SQL language, the specialized, the MySQL language, correct?
Yes, the SQL language, that's right. And then there's the lower layer, and the lower layer actually is what stores the queries or the inserts or updates that you've done and allows you to query.
So like the ISAM tables and things like that?
That's right. So for example, MyISAM, which is the default storage engine in MySQL, is primarily where a lot of that data would get stored by default. And SolidEV actually has a separate storage engine, which also stores all of that table information. And what distinguishes us from some of the other ones are we're a transactional storage engine, a lot like DB.
Okay, Oracle, so it's transactional, so which means there's a start of a transaction, it would roll back.
That's right. So we support all of the full transactional semantics, like any good transactional engine should.
Right.
Now, not all applications need transactions, and if they don't, that's fine, and they can get a lot of speed optimization with a MyISAM storage engine. But many applications do use transactions.
Can you use multiple back-end engines there?
In fact, yeah, that's one of the other cool things about MySQL. So basically, engines are defined, or I should say engines are able to be specified on a per table basis in MySQL. So I can actually create one table in MyISAM and another table in SolidEV.
So you both get the optimization, the speed, and the transaction stuff.
Yeah, I mean, in your application, you may have some tables which you don't need transactions for. I would store those in a MyISAM.
Right.
And then others where I do need transaction support, and I would use a SolidEV storage engine.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So with this technology, how are you presenting it to the open source community?
So in OSCON 2006, here last year, we decided that we're going to take a portion of our technology from our proprietary database, which has been around for 10 or 15 years, and bring it over into the open source space. And so as such, we have basically open sourced using GPL license 250,000 lines or so of that code, and that is what makes up the storage engine. We're interested basically to say, well, let's find a way for people using an open source database to scale in a vertical manner by adding more memory, by adding additional cores or CPUs.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the ISAM, the MyISAM database is limited to, it's a limited subset of what can really the power of your engine, correct?
Well, I mean, I guess that what I would sort of specify it as is that certain engines like InnoDB have particular abilities, and MySQL's belief, I mean, the company MySQL believes that there isn't a one-size-fits-all with storage engines.
Which is why they have multiple storage engines.
Which is why they have a multiple storage engine architecture, exactly. So some cases you may want transactions, and you would choose a transactional engine. Some cases you wouldn't. Some cases you may be focused on particular things, such as short-lived transactions, which we do very well with, or an 80-20 to reads to writes. Those particular types of workloads, applications use the database in different kinds of ways. And if your database needs to fit those types of workloads, the SolidEV would be another great option for you.
Say I'm a user and I say, I need transactions. How would I get this extra database engine?
So it's pretty easy. All you got to do is go to solidEV.com and just download SolidEV for MySQL from our website. And we include the entire MySQL server pre-built with our storage engine included. So you don't have to do anything more than just download it, unzip, and start up the database.
Okay, and what about the administration? Is there any special administration tools that you have to do?
It's exactly the same as a regular MySQL server. So all of the tools which you as a MySQL developer are expecting and used to are the same. Same drivers also for when you're actually ready to deploy and run. But the administration tools are the same, starting up and shutting down, all of that's the same.
So I can have a port listing on MySQL using the MyISAM engine, and if I wanted to start a transaction, I start just adding tables that specify the SolidEV transactional engine.
That's right. And in fact, it's nice because you can even do joins across storage engines when you need to. This isn't something that people do very often, but occasionally they may want to have one engine for one particular table and another engine for another, and they may need to do a SQL join to connect those tables together across storage engine, and even that is doable.
Wow, that gives it a lot of power. I'm impressed. So how are you supporting the user community other than just giving this source to them? Are you saying, oh, here you go, have fun?
Well, that's the first thing we do. Developers love that. They love to have access to the source. They love to have access to binaries, just to download stuff, play around with it. We encourage people to do that. We do actually have additional things we're doing with the community. So we have, as expected, forums that are available. We have a bug tracking tool. We've gotten a number of bug reports back from the community over time. And these are things. I mean, it's not that we're not, finding bugs on our own, but when one of the wonders of open source is when you open it up to the whole world and allow them to get involved, they use your product in ways you never imagined. They try things you never even thought of. And of course, they come across situations that your developers didn't consider fully.
I've broken many open source projects doing that.
And you've probably broken even proprietary products that way as well.
I've broken them dead too.
Correct. I mean, the difference with open source software, software is software, and there's always going to be things that break.
Right.
It's not that proprietary software doesn't have those bugs. The question really comes down to who's going to find them. I mean, the bugs are there.
Right.
When you write code, even if you have the best world-class programmers, you're going to put bugs into software. You can't write software without writing bugs. It's like living and breathing.
Right.
So the question is, who's going to find them and how are they going to get fixed? And that's really where an open source product has a huge advantage over a proprietary product. The support structure is better. So Solid Information Technology, the company, we provide full-level support, the same type of support you would get in a proprietary product. So you can purchase support from us.
So you purchase support on the product, so you can then, get the help that you need on your specific problem right away.
That's right. Everything you'd expect from a proprietary product. We have an 800 number you call. Our tech support guy, Vishnu, he picks up the phone. He's one of them. We have others as well. He's a great guy. He'll say, what's going on. He can work with you. I mean, he's been at the company a long, long time to help you with your needs. But we also have the open source community. They help too, and that's where the jump is.
Okay. Now, say that I had an MySQL using your database, and I want a particular version. Is there any way that I can get that particular version from you?
Sure. Well, there's several ways. We do keep other versions of SolidEV for MySQL up on our website. We don't remove versions. So we like people to have the option. Of course, usually the latest is typically somewhat the greatest, but not in all cases. You may need a particular version for some reason. You can get it on our site. The other way that you can get SolidEV for MySQL, as well as regular MySQL servers is on a community project called Dorsal Source. And Dorsal Source is a project that is particularly dear to my heart. It's something that I helped to start. And it's a way, it's particularly dear to my heart. It's something that I helped to start. And it's a way of basically finding all of these binaries very, very easily. So to give a little background, about 6 or 9 months ago, MySQL decided that they would no longer guarantee that every version that was released, the community edition, would have a binary associated with it for that platform.
Right.
And so they figured, well, you know, if you're an open source developer, go compile it on your own. And that's perfectly fine for lots of people. But, I mean, there are times when you don't necessarily want to compile. There's all kinds of complexities in compiling that work.
Dependencies and libraries and things like that.
Exactly. And also, I mean, there may just be, you know, other difficulties you have in terms of, compiler issues, compiler errors, and this platform doesn't quite work, and also it may just be a time issue. You know, I need something very quickly, and I don't really want to spend 30 minutes or 45 minutes to go and figure it out, read the make file, read the README file, and run the make file, and all this kind of stuff. Right. So Dorsal Source actually has all this just pre-done. We do every build of MySQL regardless, and we do them for as many platforms as we can. And this is something we're looking for help from the community. It's a community project. Currently, we support Linux, 32 and 64-bit. We support Windows. We support Mac OS X, Intel. But there's lots of other platforms out there that we would love to have. BSD, Mac OS X, PowerPC, Solaris, Spark, Solaris Intel. I mean, it goes on. And these are things where if we had machines and developers or community members who are willing to participate, then we would be able to add even more builds for every version.
In order to do this, could you automate it where someone has this machine online and someone could basically say, I want a Spark 64 build of this version of MySQL, and woof,
there it is.
There it is.
That's exactly where we want to be. Today what we do is we're building existing released builds, released sources from MySQL. So if they come out with 5041 source, we build that version on all the platforms for machines we have.
Okay.
But we definitely want to be able to have someone choose to say, well, maybe I'd like a nightly build for some reason. Maybe I'd like something that wasn't quite released yet because I have a particular bug that just got fixed and I would really love to use it. Maybe I'd like it on a different platform.
Or different options for within the creating the database, whether you want some feature that hasn't been compiled in. I know that I've done that.
That's right. That's a perfect example. There's lots of things which don't get compiled in or turned on by default into MySQL Server. There may be even certain compiler optimizations in terms of how it was compiled for a particular platform that you have a need for. We'd like to see all of those things be done in an automated fashion on Dorsal Source.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful project.
We're pretty excited.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Shaun.
Okay, thanks, Shaun.
Okay. Well, that was my interview with Jonathan Chayer.
From OSCON this last summer.
Yes, this last summer. And this week, next week, I plan to be at GOSCON, which is the government open source conference here in Portland. You see, Portland is a real open source hub. Mm-hmm. Well, now I'm going to be showing you the Postgres administration and the MySQL administration. Let's go with the MySQL administration. And I've got a very similar program to Jesse. And what I have here is I have a world database with city, the name, the country code, the district, and the population. The country. So what this does is this gives the population, life expectancy, gross national product, gross local name, government, head of state, capital, things like that for every country, and then the country language. And I've done this in both MySQL and Postgres. So what we're going to do is, if you look at the screen, Let's shrink this down to bring it in. Okay, and as you can see up here, I say select star from city where country code equals Afghanistan.
AFG is Afghanistan. Well, we'll find out.
Okay, and as you can see, there's Kabul, Kandahar, Heart, and Mazar-e-Sharif. So this tells us all the cities in Afghanistan. Now, let's try to find another country. JPN. And then we say execute. And these are all the countries in Japan.
Okay, so we have Tokyo, Yokohama, Osaka, etc.
And as you can see, they're sorted by ID number rather than population.
Right.
And for the last one, let's see if this works. China. Look at all those zeros behind the numbers.
Shanghai population, is that 9 million?
900 are, yes, 9 million.
Peking,
7 million.
Oh.
And
quite a few more than Albany, Vermont, I guess.
yes. And this is sorted by population.
Descending.
Descending. And then, let's see, I know that Shenzhen says it has a population of
950,000.
but really it's 13 million now.
Really?
Yeah. So these numbers are a little bit dated. And I pulled this off the web. So now if you look, what we can do is if we look at country code, and we can say select star from and we'll just select all the countries. Oops. And we say execute. And what this does is it tells us the country code, the continent, the region, the surface area, the year of independence, the population, the life expectancy, the gross national product, the location or name, the government form, the head of state, and the capital. And what this does is this capital represents the index of the country.
Of the city?
Of the city. So if we go back to AFG and execute that, it says Kabul is the capital because the country code name, the capital, had an index of 1. So what this means is you can find any other country like that. So that means you can do fairly complex database language sorts. So this is the MySQL version. Now this is the Postgres version. And the thing is, within Postgres, Postgres is a lot more powerful than MySQL. If you're looking for something easy, MySQL is the way to go. But with Postgres, it is really a full rational database that follows the SQL standards. So let's see, we have 2 databases, and the one we're interested in is World. And you can see all this information over here, the name of it, the OID number, the owner of it, the table space, the encoding, the defaults, on and on and on. that tells about what the database is. And then you also have, comes down here, there's languages that you can put it in. It supports replication. So if you have two databases on two machines, you can take the database on this one and pass it over to this one, and it only transfers the differences. I mean, it's really cool. And then if we look at the titles, city. So we have here, here's the city. And we have the columns, ID. So let's do a query. So we're going to open up a query tool. And I have to go with all.
Excuse me, my phone is ringing.
Okay.
Hello? So hold on a second. Shaun,
Yeah?
it's Bill, and he wants to talk
it's
to
Bill.
you.
Okay. Hey, Bill, how you doing? Oh, wow. Bill, yeah. Oh, we're showing databases today. Okay, no, Access is not a database. No, it is not. It is a file munge of data, but it is not a database. It cannot be used in a client server. It's like SQL Light. So it is not a true database. Okay, I know we disagree with that. Yeah. You know, in fact, OpenOffice, yes, OpenOffice, yes, there are other offices. And they're probably better and cheaper. Yeah, I don't have to pay $500 for an Office suite now. Oh, so, and OpenOffice is a free Office database that does 95% of what Microsoft Office does, and it's free, and it's also, in fact, the latest version, they just released one today, version 2.3. And it, yeah. Okay, and so what it does is it will do a true database lookup, just like Access, but what you do is you can select the true database on the other side instead of using the Access Jest engine. Okay, well, it's been good talking to you. Have your people call my people. Okay, we'll see you later, Bill. Have a good one. Bye. Well, Jesse, that was very interesting.
I don't know how he got my phone number. Shaun, I'm going to have a talk with you after the show. I think you said something nasty about SQLite during your conversation with Bill.
Oh yeah, I called it similar to Access. I'm sorry.
SQLite is like a real database.
That's right. Where
so you're going to do a query. You're going to select all records from the table called city where the country is equal to AFG.
select star from city.
City is the name of the database, right?
Is it city is the name of the table.
Name of the table. And
Where country code equals. Why is it having problems with this city? No.
Did you correctly capitalize country code?
Okay, well, anyway, what this does is this will allow you to look at the same things as MySQL within this query database.
This illustrates why it's so good to have a tool like this to do practice queries on your database, because when you get the query formulated correctly, you can just copy that into your application, and you've got the correct structure. And it's good to be able to look through the data to see where the errors are in your data, for example, or to fix little inconsistencies. Use it as a tool to maintain the database.
Yep. And select star from city where country code equals AFG.
Okay, well, our show is just
almost
about
over. So I want to thank our crew. Let's take a look at our crew. There you thank you,
Thank
crew.
you, crew.
Okay, I want to thank you for watching. This was the 65th show of TVLinux, and it was about databases. And if you are interested in databasing, it is a very lucrative field. Many, many people make lots of money on this. So
as we see, there is some skill involved.
there is some skill involved.
But you can start out nice and inexpensively by using a
An
free
open source database
on a Linux operating system.
In fact, you can even get a free Oracle database for Linux. So that's all the time for the show. I think it's time that we should probably start running credits. And here is, let me get PP Racer up.